Amadi frowned, his voice sharp with irritation. A Cesarean section. Why can't she deliver like other women? He snapped, rejecting the news outright. Welcome to Moonlight Tales, where stories are brought to life. Amadi and Olama were the perfect picture of a loving couple in their small village. Olama was known for her beauty, grace, and kindness, and Amadi was respected for his hard work and charm. Together they were admired by many, and their union was a source of joy for their families and friends. Amadi had two close friends, Chijioke and Emeka, who were also married. The bond between the three men was unshakable, and their wives formed a close-knit group as well. Coincidentally, all three women became pregnant around the same time, which only deepened the excitement and camaraderie among the friends. They often joked about whose child would arrive first, and exchanged baby names, plans, and hopes for the future. As fate would have it, Chijioke's wife, Nkechi, was the first to go into labor. After a few hours of labor, she gave birth naturally to a healthy baby boy. The news brought great celebration to the group, and Amadi, Emeka, and their wives were among the first to congratulate the new parents. A few weeks later, it was Emeka's wife, Adaobi, who went into labor. Like Nkechi, she delivered her child through a vaginal birth. Emeka beamed with pride, and Amadi congratulated him with a playful pat on the back, saying, "It seems our children are coming out strong and naturally, as they should." Finally, it was Olama's turn. Amadi was filled with anticipation, eager to hold his child and celebrate his wife's strength like his friends had done. But things didn't go as smoothly as he had hoped. Olama's labor was excruciating, lasting 2 agonizing days that tested her strength and spirit. The pain was relentless, each contraction more intense than the last. She cried out in anguish, gripping the edges of her bed as waves of agony racked her body. Sweat poured from her face, her breaths coming in shallow gasps as she struggled to endure the ordeal. The midwives tried their best to comfort her, encouraging her to push when the contractions came. But despite all her efforts, the baby would not come. Olama grew weaker with each passing hour, her energy draining as the pain became unbearable. Her body trembled, and tears of frustration mingled with her cries of pain. By the second day, it was clear that something was wrong. The baby was not descending as it should, and Olama's strength was nearly gone. The doctor was called in to examine her, and after a careful evaluation, he delivered the devastating news. While Amadi was at his shop, busy attending to customers and selling building materials, his phone rang. It was the doctor. Amadi answered casually, expecting an update, but his demeanor changed as the doctor spoke. "Mr. Amadi," the doctor began, "your wife's labor has been very difficult. The baby is in a breech position and a natural delivery is not possible. We need your consent for an emergency Cesarean section to save both mother and child." Amadi frowned, his voice sharp with irritation. "A Cesarean section? Why can't she deliver like other women?" he snapped, rejecting the news outright. The doctor explained that a Cesarean section was the safest option, but Amadi was adamant. "No," he said firmly, his voice rising with indignation. "She must deliver like the Hebrew women, strong and naturally. That's how Nkechi, Adaobi, my sisters, and my mother did it. Why should my wife be any different?" The doctor tried to reason with him, explaining the medical risks of attempting a vaginal delivery with a breech baby. "Mr. Amadi, this is not about strength or weakness. It's about ensuring your wife and child survive this process. A C-section is necessary." The doctor tried to explain the risks, but Amadi interrupted. "Wait there! I'm coming!" he barked, hanging up. He hurriedly closed his shop, locking the doors and dismissing the waiting customers with a wave of irritation. Rushing to the hospital, his thoughts churned with frustration and disbelief. "Why can't Olama do what other women do?" he fumed. Why should I spend so much money because she's weak? When he arrived, he stormed into the hospital room where Olama lay in pain, her face pale and weary. Ignoring her condition, he scolded her loudly. Olama, you will deliver like the Hebrew women. Don't let them deceive you with surgery. I don't have money to waste on this nonsense. Olama looked at him, tears streaming down her face, her body trembling from the pain. But Amadi's words were harsh and unrelenting. Turning to the doctor, he said coldly, "Find another way." "I'm not agreeing to this." The doctor stood firm, reminding him that without the surgery, both mother and child were at serious risk. But Amadi, blinded by pride and ignorance, refused to listen. Turning to Olama, who was exhausted and in pain, he demanded, "Why can't you be like the others? Are you not a woman? Push this child out like you're supposed to." Olama, tears streaming down her face, tried to explain that she had no control over the baby's position. "Amadi, it's not my fault," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I just want our child to be safe." But Amadi was unrelenting. He accused her of being weak, of failing him as a wife. "You're lazy, Olama. Women have been delivering naturally since the beginning of time. Why must you be the exception?" After hours of heated arguments with Olama in unbearable pain and the doctor standing his ground, Amadi finally gave in, though not without resentment. His pride had been bruised and he felt cornered. The doctor had made it clear. Without the surgery, both Olama and the baby's lives were in grave danger. With a deep scowl, Amadi grudgingly reached into his pocket, pulling out the money needed for the procedure. "Take it," he snapped, shoving the bills into the doctor's hands. "But know this. I'm only doing it because you've left me no choice. She should have delivered naturally, like a proper woman." As the staff prepared Olama for the operation, Amadi paced the waiting room, muttering angrily to himself. "Wasting my hard-earned money on this nonsense," he grumbled. "If she were stronger, none of this would be happening." When the surgery was over and both Olama and the baby were declared safe, Amadi felt no relief. Instead, his anger boiled over. He refused to hold the baby, glaring at Olama as she rested. "You've embarrassed me," he hissed. "All this pain, and for what? You've made me spend money I didn't plan for. Don't expect me to forgive this easily." After Olama's Cesarean section, Amadi's love for her seemed to wane, replaced by bitterness and scorn. Instead of celebrating the birth of their daughter, he became cruel and cold, his words cutting deeper than any blade. He began to call her lazy, mocking her for not being able to deliver like the Hebrew women, as Nkechi and Adaobi had done. "You couldn't even push a child into this world," he sneered one evening. "You don't need food to stay strong, Olama. Strength doesn't matter when you're too weak to deliver naturally." Olama, recovering from surgery, was devastated. She was still in pain, her body healing from the procedure, but Amadi showed no concern. He would intentionally withhold food from her, claiming that she didn't deserve the care and attention given to real mothers. He left her to fend for herself, ignoring her cries for help. "Why should I waste my hard-earned money on someone who failed at something every other woman in this village can do?" he would say, his words filled with venom. Olama grew weaker, both physically and emotionally. The once vibrant, confident woman he had married was now a shadow of herself. She could barely hold her child without tears streaming down her face, not from the joy of motherhood, but from the constant sting of Amadi's words. "You've wasted my hard-earned money on that surgery," he spat, glaring at her. "Do you think money grows on trees? Other women deliver naturally, but you couldn't even do that." Olama's eyes filled with tears, but he continued, his voice cold and unforgiving. "Don't expect me to feed you anymore until I recover the money I spent. You've proven you're lazy and ungrateful. If you couldn't deliver like a real woman, then you don't deserve the care of one." His words cut deep, leaving her shattered. Her heart broke every time she thought about the man she had once loved, wondering what she had done to deserve his cruelty. Yet, despite everything, she clung to her daughter, drawing strength from the tiny life she had fought so hard to bring into the world. She prayed for a miracle, hoping that one day Amadi would see the error of his ways before it was too late. One evening, Amadi sat with his friends, Emeka and Chijioke, his bitterness still evident as he complained about Olama's surgery. "I still don't understand why she couldn't deliver naturally like the Hebrew women," he muttered, shaking his head. "Do you know how much that surgery cost me?" Emeka frowned, setting down his drink. "Amadi, are you listening to yourself? You should be grateful your wife and baby are alive. Many women don't survive such complications, and yet you're here complaining about money." Chijioke nodded in agreement. "Do you think Nkechi or Adaobi would have been able to give birth naturally if they were in Olama's condition?" "The baby was breech, Amadi. That's not something anyone can control. If we were in your shoes, we wouldn't have wasted a single second in consenting to the surgery." Emeka leaned forward, his tone serious. "Olama endured so much for your family. Instead of punishing her, you should be thanking her. The method of delivery doesn't make her less of a woman or a mother. What matters is that she and your baby are safe." Amadi shook his head stubbornly. "You don't understand," he said. "My mother delivered all 6 of us naturally, and my sisters gave birth without any surgeries. If they could do it, why couldn't Olama? She's just not strong enough, and that's the truth. It's not about complications." Days turned into weeks, and Amadi's treatment of Olama worsened. His words were venomous, his actions cold and calculated to hurt. Despite her attempts to please him, he refused to let go of his anger over the money spent on her surgery. Olama, once vibrant and full of life, became withdrawn and fragile, her heart weighed down by the constant humiliation. She sat in the corner of her small home, nursing her baby, her heart heavy with the weight of Amadi's cruelty. Each passing day brought a new insult, a fresh wound to her spirit. Amadi had grown colder and harsher, constantly reminding her of the money he had spent on her surgery. The once loving husband she had married now seemed like a stranger, and Olama found herself wondering if she had made a mistake by staying silent for so long. One evening, Amadi returned home from his shop, his expression as dark as ever. He barely glanced at Olama and the baby before sitting down to eat. As he ate, he launched into another tirade, his words cutting through the quiet. "You sit here all day, doing nothing after wasting my money on that surgery. If you were a real woman, you would have delivered like the Hebrew women and spared me the shame and expense." Olama, who had endured weeks of this treatment in silence, felt something snap inside her. She placed the baby in the cradle and stood up, her voice trembling but steady. "Enough, Amadi," she said, her eyes meeting his for the first time in defiance. "I have suffered your insults, your cruelty, and your neglect, but I will not let you destroy me." Amadi looked at her, stunned by her sudden defiance. "What are you saying, Olama? You dare to speak to me like this?" "Yes, I dare," she replied, her voice gaining strength. "I carried your child for 9 months, enduring sickness, pain, and sleepless nights. I went through 2 days of excruciating labor, and when the doctor said surgery was the only way to save me and our child, I trusted him. I survived for our baby, for our family, and instead of thanking me, you have treated me like a failure." Amadi scoffed. "You call yourself a mother. You couldn't even deliver naturally. You're weak, Olama. Don't expect me to respect you." Her heart ached at his words, but she stood firm. "If you think I'm weak, then you don't deserve me. I will no longer stay in a home where I am disrespected and unloved." That night, as Amadi slept, Olama quietly packed her belongings. With the help of her family, who had long suspected the pain she was enduring, she left the house before dawn, carrying her baby and a few essentials. Her mother welcomed her with open arms, and her siblings rallied around her, assuring her that she had made the right decision. When news of her departure spread through the village, it caused a stir. Many women came to her defense, sharing their own stories of silent suffering and praising Olama for her courage. Elders and community leaders chastised Amadi for his behavior, reminding him of his duty to honor and protect his wife. At first, Amadi was defiant. He told anyone who would listen that Olama was weak and ungrateful. But as days turned into weeks, the emptiness of his home began to haunt him. The laughter of his child, the warmth of his wife's presence, everything he had taken for granted was now gone. His friends, Chijioke and Emeka, confronted him one evening. "Amadi, you've been a fool," Chijioke said bluntly. "Do you think Nkechi or Adaobi would have survived without the sacrifices their husbands made? You should be thanking Olama for bringing your child safely into this world, not punishing her." Emeka added, "You've let your pride destroy your home. If you don't humble yourself and make things right, you'll lose her forever." Amadi was silent, their words sinking in. For the first time, he began to reflect on his actions and the pain he had caused. He decided to visit Olama, hoping to win her back. But when he arrived at her family's home, he found a woman transformed. Olama, with her family's support, had started a small business selling handmade crafts. She looked stronger, more confident, and at peace. Her smile no longer held the sadness it once did, and her baby thrived under her care. When Amadi approached her, she listened to his apologies but remained resolute. "Amadi," she said calmly, "I forgave you long ago, but I cannot return to a home where I am not valued. I have found my strength, and I will not give it up for anyone." After weeks of silence and loneliness, Amadi decided to try again. He missed her deeply, her laughter, her warmth, and even the quiet strength she had always carried. With a bag of gifts in hand, food, fabric for her dresses, and toys for their baby, he made his way to her family's house, rehearsing his words along the way. When he arrived, Olama greeted him with a calm but guarded expression. Her family watched from a distance, their faces unreadable. Amadi sat down across from her, setting the gifts aside. "Olama," he began, his voice softer than she had heard in years, "I've come to apologize again. I know I hurt you and I failed as a husband. You didn't deserve my anger or my words. I was wrong, and I want to fix things. Please come back home." Olama listened, her face betraying no emotion. She had waited for weeks to hear these words, but now that they had come, she felt no relief. She had moved past the need for his approval, finding strength in her independence. "Amadi," she finally said, "I appreciate your apology and efforts, but I need more than words. I need peace, respect, and love, not just for me, but for our child." She stood and handed him an envelope. "This is my decision." Confused, Amadi opened it and froze. Divorce papers. His heart sank as he looked back at her. "Olama, no. Please don't do this." "This is what's best for us," she said, her voice steady. "I deserve to be with someone who values me, and I won't go back to a life of pain." Amadi left, his gifts forgotten, as Olama stood firm, choosing her dignity and her child's future over his empty promises. Amadi begged and pleaded, but Olama stood firm. She had found a new purpose in life, one that didn't rely on his approval. Her story became an inspiration to the women in the village, a beacon of hope for those who felt trapped by tradition and fear. In the end, Amadi was left to reflect on his mistakes, while Olama thrived, proving that true strength lies in knowing one's worth and refusing to settle for less. The moral of this story is that love, respect, and understanding are the foundation of a healthy marriage. A husband should value and support his wife, appreciating her sacrifices and efforts, especially during challenges like childbirth. Pride and comparison destroy relationships, while empathy strengthens them. For wives, it's important to recognize your worth and stand against mistreatment, prioritizing your well-being and that of your family. A true partnership is built on mutual care and appreciation. Both husbands and wives should communicate openly, respect each other's struggles, and work together to create a home filled with love, not resentment. Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe.